Hey guys, Darcy here, and today we're going to talk about recording in Luna without ARM and latency issues. What's up with that? Alright, so I've been hearing some conversation online and in the comments about recording in Luna without ARM and having latency issues. And for those who are not familiar, ARM stands for Accelerated Real-Time Monitoring, or in other words, hearing yourself real-time in your ears while recording. Now, the question is, can you record without latency in Luna without ARM? And the answer is yes, but in certain situations. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's lightly go over the concept of latency, or the round-trip process. Essentially, signal goes through your microphone into your audio interface. Then it's going to convert that electrical signal into a digital one and send that to your computer. And the speed of how fast it gets into your computer will be dependent on its connection to some degree. USB 2 versus Thunderbolt 3, not going to be the same. Then when your computer receives it, your DAW is going to process it. And as it's processing it, your plugins are going to add a little bit of a delay in milliseconds, but it's measured in samples. Each plugin will be a little bit different. Some are low latency, some are very high and will add a lot of extra milliseconds in that time. When it's done, it's going to send that back to your audio interface to send that back to your ears. Some DAWs will have a low latency mode. Essentially, it's going to try to disable plugins that add a lot of samples or latency into the path that would increase how long it takes to get to your ear, basically optimizing it for a performance that matches up with your recording of what you're hearing in your microphone. Before Luna, Universal Audio is known for their interfaces, how they had DSP, digital signal processing, that processes the sound inside the interface, giving you a real-time experience and also helping you to record that into your DAW. Luna takes it a step further by integrating what their app console would do before the DAW and bringing those two things together. This enables the ability to turn on ARM and disable anything that will create latency, or in other words, anything that's not a UAD plugin. One of the reasons for this is because without Luna, even though the Apollo interface or the UAD interface would process the sound in real time, your DAW could still have latency in and of itself, and those two things wouldn't be as in sync with each other depending on the situation. In other words, your microphone's in real time, but your playback of the music is a little bit off. So do you have to really use ARM? Well, when you're recording with ARM, the playback is so immediate that it sounds like you have one headphone off your ear and you're hearing in the other time at the same time. When they're both on, it sounds that in sync. However, if you turn ARM off while you're in Luna and have no plugins, you'll hear a slight delay. It's very, very minor, and it's pretty much on par with what you would hear from other DAWs. Now, if you only add low latency or zero latency plugins into your session, you probably won't notice any change in the actual delay. I've actually went ahead and did some recording of connecting the output signal of my Apollo interface to the input to get a sense of how much latency is added by playing a sine wave through that and being able to, get a visual for how far things get pushed back. If you look here of the raw signal compared to a signal where there are low latency plugins, it's virtually the same. However, when I have added ozone into the mix, which is known to add latency, each recording take that I had, you can see that it's actually pushed back or further forward each time, adding a different amount of latency. Ozone is just used as an example for plugins that do add latency. Not all of them are going to be the same, but this is where, mileage will start to vary. I also suspect if you add a ton of low latency plugins into a session, likely the same issue will occur as well. Latency will be added. And also, before you ask, it doesn't matter where in the session these plugins are in Luna, whether they're in your recording path or just somewhere else, as long as there are plugins enabled that add latency, it's going to happen. So if you need to record without ARM, my suggestion, you have a lightweight session that has as few of plugins as possible that are all low latency and no virtual instruments. And I highly suggest you test this session out. You want to make sure you know that the latency is good to go before bringing somebody else in and having them make complaints. But Darcy, I need to record into a session that I'm already mixing. I already have a lot of plugins. In this situation, honestly, ARM is going to be your best bet. It's going to disable everything that's going to create latency. And what you'll need to do is add UAD plugins into your recording track that's going to give you the right flavor, the right vibe. And then when you have gotten takes that you like, you take those clips and you bring them back to the mix track so that on playback you get to hear the sound that you want, but the record track is just for the artist's ear. Also, something you want to keep in mind is using the API Vision console. The benefit here is that when you go between record enable and playback mode with a track, it actually toggles between the DSP version and the CPU extension of this plugin. I have a video that I'll link to that gives more in-depth detail, but the real benefit here is what you'll hear in your ear will match what you'll hear in playback. So your recording and your playback will be the same sound. So you won't have a recording chain that has a slightly different flavor than your playback. Just one thing to keep in mind, at least from a EQ and compression and preamp perspective. At the end of the day, you can record without ARM enabled, but everyone's experience is going to be a little different. And obviously UAD's goal here is to give this real-time recording experience they've always had, but integrated into the DAW experience. You know, at the same time, giving you the full-fledged mixing and playback experience using your other plugins. They're trying to find that beautiful hybrid, and obviously, recording with ARM may not be for everybody, but I think that a lot of people, once they get used to it and find their way in their mix of how they want to record and use playback, they'll actually end up loving it. But, for me, I've been using it since day one. I've loved it. I've not really had much desire to record without ARM. The reason I actually got my Apollo was actually because I wanted that recording experience through console into my DAW, and when Luna came out, it took the two and put them together, so that was ideal for me. But everyone's mileage is different. Everybody's experience is a little bit different. But anyways, I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, let me know that. If you have follow-up questions, let me know that in the comments. And otherwise, have yourself a good one. Peace.